The medical pod hissed open, and Dr. Venn stepped back with a shake of his head. The woman inside barely registered as alive on the scanners. Her skin held an ashen pallor, her breathing shallow and irregular. The plague had ravaged her body for weeks, leaving her on the edge of death. "Mark her for disposal," Venn said to his assistant. "She's beyond treatment. We need the pod for someone we can actually save." The assistant hesitated. "Are you certain?" "The human protocols." "Look at the readings," Venn interrupted, gesturing at the flickering display. "Organ failure across multiple systems. Neural degradation. Even if we had unlimited resources, which we don't, she wouldn't survive another day. It's a waste to try." They were 3 systems away from Earth, on a frontier station where the plague had struck without warning. The Galactic Medical Council had sent teams, but the disease overwhelmed everyone. Triage became ruthless. Those deemed unsalvageable were removed from care to make room for patients with better odds. The woman was carried to the disposal wing, a sterile corridor where the dying were left to pass in whatever peace could be managed. Rows of simple beds lined the walls. She was placed on one, a thin blanket draped over her trembling form. That was where Marcus found her. He had come to the station as a freight hauler, delivering supplies to the quarantine zone. While others refused to enter the infected sectors, Marcus volunteered. Someone had to bring food, medicine, and equipment to those fighting the plague. He didn't think of himself as brave. He simply saw work that needed doing. He was walking through the disposal wing, checking if any supplies had been misplaced, when he saw her. She lay motionless, except for the faint rise and fall of her chest. Her dark hair was matted with sweat, her lips cracked and pale. Marcus stopped. He checked the chart hanging from her bed. The notes were brief and clinical. Advanced systemic failure, no treatment initiated, comfort measures only. "They gave up on you," he said quietly. Her eyes opened slightly, unfocused and glassy. She didn't seem to see him. Marcus looked down the corridor. No one was watching. The medical staff were overwhelmed in the active treatment wards. The disposal wing was a place people avoided, where the dying were left alone. He made a decision that defied all logic. Marcus lifted her carefully, blanket and all, and carried her to his ship. The vessel was old and battered, a cargo hauler retrofitted for long journeys. It had a small medical bay, nothing fancy, but it had the basics. He laid her on the only bed and began running diagnostics. The readings were worse than he expected. Her immune system had collapsed. Toxins flooded her bloodstream. Her organs were shutting down one by one. "Why am I doing this?" Marcus muttered to himself as he searched through his limited medical supplies. He had basic training, enough to handle injuries in deep space, but nothing prepared him for this. Still, he worked. He set up intravenous lines, pumping fluids and broad-spectrum antibiotics into her system. He adjusted the atmospheric controls to increase oxygen levels. He monitored her vitals obsessively, making adjustments whenever her condition shifted. Days blurred together. Marcus barely slept. He researched the plague through every database he could access, looking for treatments the doctors might have missed. Most information was restricted or incomplete, but he pieced together fragments. The plague attacked the body's ability to regulate itself. It turned the immune system into a weapon against its own host. Standard treatments failed because they couldn't address the cascade of failures happening simultaneously. But humans were different from most species. Human bodies were resilient in strange ways, shaped by millennia of surviving diseases on a hostile homeworld. They could endure extremes that would kill others. They healed from injuries that seemed fatal. Their immune systems, when properly supported, could adapt to almost anything. Marcus began experimenting. He combined treatments in ways the medical textbooks warned against. He used old earth remedies alongside advanced pharmaceutical compounds. He pushed her body to its limits, forcing it to fight. She nearly died twice. Her heart stopped once, and Marcus had to manually restart it, pounding on her chest until the rhythm returned. Another time, her lungs filled with fluid, and he had to drain them with a procedure he barely understood. But slowly, impossibly, she began to stabilize. Took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of constant care, of adjustments and interventions, of refusing to give up even when every indicator said he should. When her eyes finally opened with clarity, focusing on his face, Marcus felt something break inside him. Relief, exhaustion, and something deeper he couldn't name. "Where am I?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Safe," Marcus said. "You're safe." Her name was Elena. As she recovered, they talked. She told him about her life before the plague, about the colony she had been helping to establish. He told her about his years hauling cargo across the frontier, about the loneliness of space and the satisfaction of solving problems no one else would touch. She was weak for a long time. Marcus continued caring for her, helping her rebuild strength. They were alone on the ship, traveling between stations while he worked. The isolation might have been unbearable, but instead it became something else. They fell into an easy rhythm. She would sit in the cockpit while he piloted, asking questions about the stars. He would cook simple meals, and they would eat together, sharing stories. At night, when the ship hummed through the darkness, they would talk until sleep claimed them. Neither planned what happened next. It grew naturally from proximity and gratitude, and something neither had expected to find. One night, as the ship drifted through empty space, they crossed a line from companionship into something deeper. It was gentle and hesitant at first. Marcus was terrified of hurting her, of pushing too hard when her body was still healing. But Elena reached for him with a certainty that dissolved his doubts. Afterward, lying together in the dim light of the cabin, she said, "You saved my life." "You did most of the work," Marcus replied. "I just gave you the chance." Weeks passed. Elena grew stronger. Color returned to her cheeks. She began helping with the ship, learning its systems, becoming part of the crew, even though it was just the two of them. Then came the morning when Elena woke feeling ill. At first, Marcus feared the plague had returned. He ran every test he could think of, panic rising in his chest. The results showed something entirely different. Elena stared at the display, her hand moving to her stomach. "I'm pregnant." Marcus stood frozen. Of all the outcomes he had imagined, this had never crossed his mind. How is this possible? Elena asked. "After everything the plague did to my body." Marcus sat down heavily. "Human reproduction is incredibly resilient. Your body healed more than I realized." They sat in silence for a long time, processing the implications. "What do we do?" Elena finally asked. Marcus looked at her. In the months since he had carried her from that disposal wing, she had become the center of his world. He hadn't planned on saving her. He certainly hadn't planned on falling in love. But here they were, facing a future he had never imagined. "We figure it out," he said. "Together." The pregnancy progressed without complications. Against all odds, Elena's body supported the new life growing inside her. Marcus monitored her constantly, protective to the point of obsession, but she thrived. They talked about their future, about finding a place to settle, about raising a child, about building something permanent after years of drifting. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked one night, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "Taking me from that place?" Marcus thought about the question seriously. He had violated protocols, risked his livelihood, spent nearly all his savings on medical supplies. He had sacrificed months of work and pushed himself to the edge of collapse. "No," he said simply. "Not for a second." The baby was born on the ship, in the same medical bay where Elena had first recovered. Marcus delivered the child himself, his hands shaking but steady when it mattered. The infant cried with powerful lungs, and Elena laughed through her tears. They named her Hope. News of Alana's recovery eventually reached the medical community. Doctors who had written her off as dead were astonished. They studied Marcus's treatment logs, trying to understand how he had succeeded where they had failed. The answer was simple, though no one wanted to hear it. He had refused to give up. He had treated her as someone worth saving, not as a lost cause to be discarded. Humanity gained a reputation after that. The species that wouldn't abandon their own. The people who saw value where others saw only waste. It became part of the stories other races told, a grudging respect for human stubbornness and sentiment. But for Marcus and Elena, the galaxy's opinion mattered little. They had found something rare in the vastness of space. A second chance, a family. A future built from the moment one person refused to walk away, as their ship traveled through the stars. Hope sleeping peacefully between them, they knew their story would continue. Not as a legend or a tale of human exceptionalism, but as something simpler and more profound, a life saved. A love found. A family born from the moment someone chose compassion over convenience. And that was enough.